A viral video showing a white female cop crying and claiming she was too nervous to eat her egg McMuffin out of fear it was tampered with appears to be dividing the internet. At the time of this recording, the clip has been viewed on Twitter over 16 million times in less than 48 hours, and as you can imagine, the reaction of people range from those making fun of her to those defending police in general. We got the story for you right now on InformOverload. What's going down, guys? Jared Bronson here with you today. Welcome back to I.O., where we make the news fun and entertaining. It's hard to get both, but we do it here. Sometimes we even call you guys potatoes, sometimes we don't. You guys are potatoes. I just did it. Make sure to subscribe and follow the I.O. team on socials for news updates. I'll be replying to some of your comments to wrap this one up, so stick around if you're a real one. But for now, let's jump into it. The video currently going viral was posted by Twitter user Ann, who captioned it, "Stacy, who has been a cop for 15 years, went to at McDonald's. She paid for it in advance, and this is how she gets treated for being a cop. Come on, America, we are better than this." In the clip itself, a white female officer can be seen visibly upset and eventually breaking down into tears describing what happened. The officer, who has been identified as Stacy, starts by explaining she ordered ahead, got her receipt, and moved up to the next window to get her food. After waiting an unusual period of time, they asked her to pull up to a spot and wait for her order there. Officer Stacy goes on to explain that an employee came out with just a coffee in her hand, and at this point, visibly fighting back tears in the video, says she told the employee not to bother with the food because she's too nervous to take it. She caps off the video by explaining she's never been so anxious in her 15 years to go pick up food, and that people not only need to give police a break, but thank them because she hasn't been hearing it much lately. With everything going on regarding the BLM movement and police brutality, some people felt this video was comical, while others genuinely felt for the officer. Twitter user Palais replied, "Not sure anyone who falls apart like this over an egg McMuffin should be in possession of a firearm," while others pointed out how minuscule of an issue thinking your food is poisoned when innocent black people are being racially profiled and even targeted by police on a regular basis. One tweet read, "Okay, now imagine feeling like this every day of your life, especially when you see a cop. Imagine feeling like this every day at your very normal job just because someone might not like the way you look. Imagine feeling like this every time your kids leave the house." However, as you can imagine, there were people arguing in her defense. User Rob Messel wrote, "I wager most people joyfully dunking on McDonald's cop would not do the same if it was the cashier having the breakdown from being exhausted and demoralized. Easier to assume she's crazy than to consider there are human beings caught in both sides of this clash." Another wrote, "McDonald's needs to fire who did this. Hashtag defend the police. Hashtag back the blue." It's important to mention the officer's fear is likely stemming from the incident that occurred involving 3 NYPD officers earlier in the week. For those of you who don't know, 3 NYPD officers were hospitalized after purchasing milkshakes from Shake Shack. Immediately following the incident, an investigation was launched to determine if the officers' shakes were deliberately tampered with. After a further investigation, it was determined the officers were not intentionally poisoned and that no criminal activity was involved. As of now, it's believed there was accidentally some leftover cleaner in the machine used to serve the officers, possibly bleach. It seems all 3 are going to recover, but as you can imagine, an incident like this, even though it was accidental, would certainly give officers all over a heightened sense of awareness or possibly fear. It could also give some restaurants or fast food workers ideas. I'm just saying, you never know what people will do nowadays. So going back to Officer McMuffin, who is being referred to as Officer Karen, I think both sides have a point in their arguments. Now, regardless of my political opinion, at the end of the day, this is a video humanizing this officer. It seems there's been such a highlight on police brutality that there's a general consensus all cops are bad. But do we not see a problem in generalizing a group of people? Aside from this, the reality is being a cop is not an easy job. Yes, they know what they're getting themselves into when they sign up, but the reality is every day they put on a uniform, they're taking a risk. Albeit a risk they're knowingly willing to take, it's still a risk. So if you factor that in, on top of the way police in general are being perceived, after a long day of work, I could see why a cop would be emotional. However, with that being said, it is quite concerning that someone who can be so emotional over having to wait for an egg McMuffin and clearly letting her anxious thoughts consume her mind be in a position of power. In this case, a police officer. And it's important to talk about how that's the issue. A person in a position of power letting their emotions get the best of them. It has nothing to do with her having a gun, because technically speaking, in a state where you're legally allowed to carry a firearm, anyone could have a bad day, maybe even have an anxiety attack, and still have a gun on their waist. The issue is, this police officer responded emotionally to an event where she thought, without any real concrete evidence, aside from the fact that she waited an unusually long time, she was in danger. So now imagine how this cop would respond if she thought, without any real evidence, that an unarmed suspect could possibly have a weapon. It seems this is what leads to a lot of the police brutality we're seeing. People are being put in positions where their emotions are taking control, and unfortunately as a police officer, when you have the power you do, that's just unacceptable. I think the biggest takeaway from this video is that we need officers officers to be trained to remain calm, rational, and non-emotional in any given situation. They need to understand how to de-escalate things in a controlled manner instead of letting fear take over, which, as we've seen time and time again, has led to unnecessary deaths. Now, as always guys, I encourage a conversation to take place. I'd love to hear your thoughts, as I'm sure a lot of you will have opinions as well. I'd recommend a lot of you guys check out Jocko Willink speaking on defunding the police while on Joe Rogan's podcast. I found that incredibly insightful, and I feel some of you will as well. For now, let's reply to some comments from the video, top 10 strict rules Disney actors have to follow. Grace Lee May said Disney is a cult. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, there's tons of, theories. Some people think Walt Disney's like Frozen and gonna come back soon. Other people said he was anti-Semitic. I'm not gonna say much on it. I'm not gonna accuse him of anything. Maybe it is a cult. Keisha Wolf said scandal training is probably the one rule that's the most reasonable for all parties involved, followed by the social media one. We all know the backlash one wrong tweet can cause. I agree. If anything, I think maybe we need to teach kids about social media in school. How, things they put on the internet are there forever. Even if they're making a joke, it can be taken out of context. If they post, I don't know, something that they're embarrassed about. Anything. I'm not just talking about the negative, but even things that as a kid, they wanted to post it, and then when they grow older, even things like drinking and smoking, like when you're underage, like 16, that stuff can't go online. I didn't know that when I was 16, so I did it, and then I had to make a whole new Facebook account because I didn't want that out there. So, wish I knew. Kristen Roberts said there was a South Park episode on the rings being worn by the Jonas Brothers. I saw a few comments regarding that. I don't think I've seen the episode, although I feel like I've seen a Jonas Brothers episode on South Park. Regardless, I gotta check it out. Great show. But that's it for this one, guys. Like I said, hopefully we can have a conversation in the comments down below. I really did not mean to offend anybody with anything that I said, and if I did, I don't really know what I said that could have offended you guys, so I'm sorry that you were offended. I'd love to have a conversation, maybe educate each other, so we'll talk in those comments down below. I've been your host, Jared Bronstein, and we'll see you guys in the next one.